And we are back on the 0 hour. I would call our next guest a polymath, but then all of our listeners would be like, oh man, no math. I'm a liberal arts major. He is, as you know, polymath is a person who does more than one thing. Andrew Slack is creator and co-founder and executive director of the Harry Potter Alliance, which gets fans of Harry Potter and such things to do good things in the world. He is also a comedian, a satirist, a student of culture, and a bunch of other stuff. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, RJ, that was a great introduction.
Thank you. I think you should put polymath on your card from this point forward.
Now I have to if RJ Eskow has said that I'm a polymath.
That's right. And it can say, all the tribute quotes to you can include polymath, quote unquote, RJ Eskow.
Two things. One, it is always like a joy to be on your show because you have one of my favorite shows that exists. And two, just one slight correction is that I've shifted from being executive director to being president of the organization, but I'm now movement director. We felt that it was time to really expand on what we do to places beyond the fan audience that we work in, and we've been doing that by working with workers and other groups as well. So that's where a lot of my focus has been.
Well, I think that's fantastic, actually, and I want to hear more about it. And you're one of my favorite people, as I always say. And I'm glad that I have one of your favorite shows that exist, because you ought to see the shows I have that don't exist. They're awesome.
That's right.
They're all in my head. So I want to start out by talking about a really excellent victory that the Harry Potter Alliance had recently, and those of us who know you and know this world have been celebrating it. But tell us a little about it, if you would.
Sure. I'm going to actually read you a letter because it outlines what the victory is. On December 22nd, 2014, so less than a month ago, though it wasn't announced until this week, with a Washington Post article, I received a letter from the head of all Warner Brothers, their global franchise development, with the office of J.K. Rowling CC'd. It says the following: Dear Andrew, on behalf of J.K. Rowling and Warner Brothers, we are pleased to update you on important steps Warner Brothers plans to take with regard to the cocoa used in Harry Potter chocolate products, which build on WB's existing ethical sourcing guidelines. By the end of 2015 and sooner when possible, all Harry Potter chocolate products sold at Warner Brothers outlets and through our licensed partners will be 100% UTZ or Fair Trade certified. We are working closely with our suppliers and partners to achieve this. Thank you for your partnership throughout our discussions on this important issue. We value and appreciate the collective voice of the Harry Potter Alliance members and Harry Potter fans all over the world and their enthusiasm and love for the world of Harry Potter. We would be very grateful if you are sharing this message, that you share it in its entirety. Kind regards, Josh Berger. And that was the end and the victory of a campaign that has been going on since Halloween of 2010. It actually was conceived of in December of 2008. It is the longest running thing we've ever done. When we started to do it, this idea of making Harry Potter chocolate fair trade, the concept seemed impossible. And we did it anyway, and it's been a very long road, and it is a very big victory for us, and hopefully a very important and profound victory in the fight against the exploitation of cocoa farmers and the enslavement of children across the world.
Well, that is so fantastic. I'm so proud of you and your organization. I think that's a tremendous victory. You know, and it tells me a couple of things. I mean, first of all, just the fact that J.K. Rowling's office was CC'd is impressive, man. I mean, that's impressive. It's like she was in on this. She knew it. Warner Brothers, huge corporation. You made real change here. And this is, I guess one of the things that I love about this success, one of the several things I love about it, is that we don't always think about, it's in my head, even one of my defects, I guess I would say, is I'm always thinking in terms of, what can we get Congress to do? What can we get the White House to do? And all of that's important. I'm not knocking that. I mean, obviously I feel that way because I do devote a fair amount of energy to it. but I think we, meaning the broader we of people who want to make the world better, mostly progressive, not all, but this broader we, I don't think we think in terms enough about picking the right opportunities, challenges, targets. I don't like the word targets because it seems aggressive, but picking the right openings like this. And this was just a fantastic one. How do you think of it?
Well, I think that reflection you just said really nailed it, and I think it really should send a message home for a lot of us who are progressives. This is something that Ethan Zuckerman at the Office of Civic Media at MIT has been talking about a lot, and uses this campaign actually as one of his main examples. That very much right now, people talk about a crisis in civics going on, when in fact it's a crisis in agency, not a crisis in civics. People feel the crisis in civics is one of agency, not one of knowledge, which has been posed. But one of the other problems continues to be that we continue to look to government as the only area for solutions, and I think that we need to get really creative here and look at the victory that we saw with marriage equality, and that we're continuing to see this domino effect all over the country of marriage equality spreading. It's becoming toxic, not only in the Democratic Party, it will soon be toxic in the Republican Party eventually,
right,
to be against marriage equality. And 10 years ago, that was the opposite scenario. And it was toxic in the Democratic Party to be for marriage equality. I mean, we had Obama, we had John Kerry, we had these candidates run on positions they took a very soft line, saying it's up to the states to decide. Personally, I'm against it for religious reasons, but it's up to the states to decide. Now they're all for it. What happened there? How did that change? And how it changed was the work of organizers. It was the work of certainly political organizers, and working on state laws, and on lawyers doing that, on organizers doing that, on decades long of work and all of that. But it was also the influence of culture. It's also been things like the influence of the Chick-fil-A fallout. And even though that backfired to some degree, it also demonstrated the level of support that this issue has. The Will and Grace effect of Will and Grace. Culture matters, and it influences the ethos. And ethos is the thing that we as social creatures really, really, connect to. The founders of this country had a beautiful vision, and yet most of them owned human beings as private property. And even those that did not and were against it passionately, and they did exist, they still were friends with those who did.
And let me jump in for a second, because I think there are a couple interesting points here. We're talking with Andrew Slack about the Harry Potter Alliance and its latest victory. First of all, if you got RJ Eskow and Ethan Zuckerman talking you up, you're in, man. But secondly,
that's true.
I got to say, mentioning the founders, really, there's so many dimensions to this. You're right. I think that we need to address the ethos and nurture it and change it and move it. But when you mentioned the founders, it triggered something that I think an area where progressives sometimes go astray. I mean, you mentioned that those founders that didn't hold slaves were friends with those who did. And in fact, some of those who held slaves knew they were doing the wrong thing and were in a kind of almost like mortgage trap. And I'm not defending it. I mean, it was a horror. Please don't misunderstand me. But sometimes the way to affect change is through communication. And as you say, changing the ethos, rather, I'm getting in trouble here. I'm not really expressing what I'm trying to.
In my mind, you're not getting in trouble at all. I know that somebody could, because these issues are so sensitive, someone could mishear something that you're saying, but I don't think you are actually misspeaking in any way, shape, and form. Because what was going on in the 1770s is the ethos was that slavery is a normal and vital part of economic development. That is wrong. That is immoral and disgusting. But to be a human being that grows up in a world like that is a very difficult thing to fight effectively and to end and dismantle. And we have to understand, like right now, for instance, what if, let's just say, let's fantasize 1 in a trillion shots that I'm remembered 200 years from now as some great leader or something, people will say, there's a very good chance that people will say, yeah, but he ate factory farmed meat. Those animals were being tortured. And I do eat factory farmed meat. And his friends who did great things, they were vegan, but they were friends with him. And factory farmed meat is a horrible, horrible thing. But the ethos of the environment that I was brought up in is that was a normal thing. So in order to change, to create real social change, we've got to change the ethos. The ethos around the cocoa crop right now is that it is normal for there to be exploited farmers and children. We say child slaves. I mean, if you put this in U.S. terms, imagine just like walking into New Jersey and just taking kids, just stealing them, kidnapping them, and then putting them somewhere else on a plantation to now be slaves. These were kids that were going to go to Ivy League schools, let's say. And if that were the case, people would flip out and they would look for them and find them and bring them back. We're not doing that. We're not bankrupting or arresting these child kidnappers. We're actually rewarding them with money because they're part of the status quo that goes into everyday chocolate. And Nestle has even admitted that while they hate that reality, they have no idea if they're funding it or not. And they have no
and this brings us back. And Andrew Slack, this brings us back in a circle to, in a good circle to what you guys at the Harry Potter Alliance just did, because in fact that is slavery. We are talking about all of us, Harry Potter fans, anyone else who wasn't conscious of this issue, didn't think about it in the right context. Maybe we saw an article that said that there's slave labor in chocolate and there's slave labor in some clothing, but it doesn't really register. We are like those founding fathers who, and they were fathers, unfortunately, exclusively, who kept slaves. We always need to evolve. Society always has another level of understanding to reach. And I think what I liked so much about this initiative is that it identified a case where we can, as all of us, can raise our own consciousness, if you will, on this topic of ongoing child slavery, and 2, do something positive, and 3, allow people like the person who wrote you that letter to become better human beings, because most people want to be good human beings.
Right. And that was the experience I had with Warner Brothers. I mean, that was, they work for a major blue chip company. It's very hard to create change. Imagine one of those executives wanting to let's make all Harry Potter chocolate UTZ or fair trade certified. They're not going to get it done. This involved not only Warner Brothers, it involved Universal. Universal owns the theme park for Harry Potter.
Okay, I'm going to jump in, Andrew, and say we've got to take a break now, but when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about the specifics of Time Warner and Universal, and then see where else we go. We're talking with Andrew Slack of the Harry Potter Alliance and other cool initiatives. We will be right back after this. I'm Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour. And we are back on the Zero Hour talking with Andrew Slack, Movement Director for the Harry Potter Alliance, comedian, activist, all-around cool guy, and friend of the program. We love him. We're glad to have him. And we were just talking before we went to the break about the Harry Potter Alliance's success in getting the Time Warner Corporation to stop buying, purchase fair trade chocolates and get the child slavery products out of the equation. And we were talking a little bit about you reaching out to the humanity of the people who work there.
Yeah, I mean, these folks, RJ, they're not bad people. They're good people. But they work for a gigantic institution, and it's very hard to make change. The real enemy here, is a system that is invisible, that makes it possible for slavery to continue. In terms of slavery right now, by sheer number, it is true that probably at more than any time in human history, slavery is considered more unacceptable now than at any other time in human history. However, by sheer number of people, there are more slaves now on Earth than there has been at any other point in human history. That is a startling fact. It is very troubling, especially given the fact that our internal belief system has now gone so past the point of rejecting slavery and has gone to the point that everyone should have civil rights and that everyone should have, equal rights. This concept that slavery is that prevalent and that we actually pay for it is so upsetting. So what do? In this case, we decided, look, they might be good people at Warner Brothers, but I look to that famous parable of FDR. He's surrounded by these liberal friends who are telling him about all these liberal policies he's got to do, and he finally interrupts them and says, "Gentlemen, I agree with you. Now make me do it." I mean, he needed external pressure. And if the president or if the company or whoever is not doing the right thing, we need to provide a convincing case, not just a moral case, but a case that a saying I like that I made up once is, a good leader chooses what's right over what's popular. A great leader takes what's right and makes it popular.
Hey, that is great, actually. I'm impressed by that. And I think the other piece of that, implicit in your comments, Andrew Slack, is that what people don't realize, and I was in the corporate world, I do know this from personal experience, that corporate leaders, whatever wrong things many of them have done, and there should have been prosecutions in the banking scandal and Wall Street and so on. But that aside, a lot of corporate leaders, they are part of a system, just as we all are. And the fact is very simple. Even when it comes to a fundamental moral issue like slavery, if a CEO or other corporate executive can't justify taking the right position, this is shocking, but this is how it works, then he is actually breaching his fiduciary responsibility to that organization. He'll be gone, and someone else will be in tomorrow who will keep doing the things that promote slavery. So the challenge is to somehow, first of all, speak to the better side of that individual executive's soul, for lack of a better word, spirit, and at the same time create a situation where it's a win for everybody concerned for them to do the morally right thing. Is that kind of what you guys did here, or did you just get them to do the morally right thing?
That was our plan. And we had an amazing ally in one of our head advisors, Simon Billiness. He's a seasoned corporate campaigner. So we got his advice from the very beginning. Simon's now the ED at the U.S. campaign for Burma. And he told us, look, you got to play an inside game and an outside game. Nobody's a bad person here. It's a bad situation. But you've got to get your members to be upset because it's upsetting. It is disturbing. And that's why it's essential for activist organizations to get our members to take that morally righteous standpoint. But it's also essential to communicate as best we can with those on the inside, and to try to play both is a very difficult balancing act, and it takes, I like to say, patience, persistence, pizzazz. Those the three P's in succeeding in any purpose: patience, persistence, pizzazz. As the Harry Potter Alliance, we have pizzazz in spades, and but we've also got patience and persistence, and we would not stop. And we would not go away. And thankfully, we were joined by an organization, Walk Free, in the anti-slavery movement eventually. And Walk Free, they didn't care about the Harry Potter brand. And I made that very clear to Warner Brothers, saying, look, now you've opened the gates here, because they weren't cooperating for a little while, Warner Brothers. They told us, when we showed them a report that we had independently commissioned that gave Harry Potter chocolate an F in human rights, they responded that they did their own review and that it was consistent with their ethical sourcing guidelines. By the way, their ethical sourcing guidelines are a cut above the average company their size. And I said, that's great. Can you show us this report? And they refused to show us this report. So we started another campaign, a side campaign called ShowUsTheReport.com. We had YouTubers and fans, all of these people that were putting forward this idea that we want to see the report. Now the campaign became about corporate transparency. And with Walk Free involved, it began to escalate. We finally communicated to J.K. Rowling that we had over 400,000 signatures and that she's an Amnesty International activist. She used to work for Amnesty International, etc. We told Warner Brothers that we were going to be that Walk Free was going to be pulling a publicity stunt. Essentially, they were going to be using a cloud to create Voldemort's dark mark over the wall, the Warner Brothers studio. And
which, may I say, is just an awesome idea.
right. Well, it wasn't our idea. Walk Free, what was so cool to watch, and what we've seen emerge, in the last few years is that activist organizations are doing more creative cultural organizing. Walk Free is one of many examples of this. I mean, the best example that I know of is the National Domestic Workers Alliance and their organization Caring Across Generations, the work of Ai-jen Poo, who was recently named a MacArthur Genius. This is all really important stuff to be looking at and that organizations, can be looking at. But it eventually allowed them to finally say, don't do the stunt, Walk Free, and you guys can come into a meeting with us. Initially, they just invited me. And I said, well, I have to have my partner come in and Walk Free. So we came in, we sat down, and we hammered something out that essentially said that by the end of the year, they would have something that sitting with them, I liked them so much. Brad Loeb, the president of Warner Brothers Consumer Products, we were joking around. We're both Jewish. We were telling a lot of jokes. It was great. It was a really good, very humanized. I mean, one of the people in the meeting said, "Look, this is a no-brainer. Of course, we all have kids in this meeting. We hate child slavery. And why would we be in support of that? Let's hammer something out." And I said, "Look, money is gained, money is lost, but at the end of the day, this could be one of the most important conversations that any of us have in our lives. Let's get ahead of the story. Let's make fan activists who believe in the message of Harry Potter and Dumbledore's message to choose what is right over what is easy. Let's make it a reality. Let's work with a studio. Let's do something that's never happened before. That's another dimension to this. This has never happened where a studio works in partnership with the fan activists and with the author of the story to deliver the goods and make the good happen. But now we have Harry Potter. We have the victory. So what now? What is now is that Harry Potter represents a moral authority in our popular culture. Now that it's shifted to reject child slavery and to reject the exploitation of child slavery and the exploitation of cocoa farmers, what does that mean for the ethos of this discussion of child slavery and global slavery in our world as it pertains to cocoa? It changes it. It shifts it. What's next? Roald Dahl's daughter, Ophelia Dahl, started with Paul Farmer, Partners in Health. You think she's going to be happy that Nestle owns the Willy Wonka candy company and that they haven't done that yet? Their chocolate is not fair trade or uncertified. What can we create an ethos where we say when chocolate is marketed to rich children, to privileged children, it should not be paying the kidnappers and slave owners of children who are making the chocolate for other children. It's like children eating children. Good for a Joss Whedon sci-fi horror story, bad for reality.
Right. And I think what you did that was great, and what you could turn to Willy Wonka and do is what you did in a way was you not only appealed to their best selves, and by the way, didn't judge them, didn't prejudge them going in, which I think is really smart, and you also, intentionally or not, it was a pitch meeting. It was, look, you were pitching, this is not only the morally right thing to do, this can help your brand. I mean, people associate Harry Potter with justice. Right. This confirms that. This strengthens the brand. This makes people want to buy your chocolate.
And think about all of those fans that are working so hard that go to the theme park. I mean, they're going to be so eager to buy those chocolate frogs. So yes, it's very exciting from that standpoint. Our members now understand that they can make a difference in advocacy, that we can make a difference in advocacy, not only in service and charity. We're coming up on the 5-year mark of us sending 5 cargo planes to Haiti. Huge achievement. This one's bigger. This one's way bigger because it's changing a corporation around human rights. Will it save lives? Let's certainly hope so. But let's get it to spread, and let's change the ethos of the nature of chocolate and cocoa so that Nestle, Hershey, Cadbury, so that there is no more consumers having to decide, you know what, maybe I'll buy the fair trade chocolate, or maybe I'll buy the chocolate that could very well have come from child slaves. That's not a choice that anyone should have to make. That's a stupid choice. There should be no child slavery. That's just flat out. So let's make me do it. FDR said, make Nestle, Hershey, Cadbury stand up and bankrupt these people that are kidnapping children and enslaving them. They're bankrupt those that are exploiting cocoa farmers, which, by the way, does no one a service who likes chocolate, because cocoa farmers are beginning to wise up and find other crops, which makes cocoa more rare, which makes chocolate more expensive. In 2 decades, it could be a real problem in terms of the cost of chocolate. So let's change that now. So this was a real victory on a lot of levels, from our members' empowerment, for what fan activism can be, for this notion that change is not only about waiting every 2 years for an election and dealing with these different, this is a huge victory for human rights. We're all humans. One of my mentors, Eric Blue, once said about our elected officials is that we always think of them as leaders. They're not leaders. They're exquisite followers. We lead, they follow.
That's absolutely right. And you know what else I love about this model is that, I get tired of just dissing people who disagree with me. I think it's kind of nice to find ways to work with them. I remember I was talking to our mutual friend, Alex. I can't remember what it was, but it occurred to me we could bring the big beef ranchers in on it. And I told him I couldn't wait to go out to Wyoming and address a meeting of ranchers just so that I could say, boys, we got a problem. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying, which is it's great to collaborate. It's great to bring people together on a higher ethical plane, and I think you did that, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. So, so what's next? Willy Wonka?
I hope so. We're going to see. I mean, we're talking to other organizations. We're also looking at our own bandwidth. People want to donate to us, please do, because we need the funds for that specific project to make it happen. I hate sounding like a professional beggar, but that is essentially one of my many roles. So Willy Wonka could easily be next in terms of this campaign. It is essential for us to take the momentum from this victory and maximize it to its fullest extent. Of course, I'm still interested, not only interested, but we're working with the Fight for 15 to make odds in our favor this year. Our Hunger Games campaign, the biggest one yet. There's talk about connecting it to the Star Wars franchise. Because it's an anti-empire franchise, right? And that comes out in December. So there's a lot that's being done there. We've got our book drive that we do every year coming up in April. We've got a campaign on August 3rd, Esther Day. The young woman Esther Earl, who inspired the book and movie The Fault in Our Stars. That holiday is all about saying that we love each other, and we say in the Harry Potter Alliance, the weapon we have is love. And ultimately, that's what we're working for in this world. Stephen Levine said love is the only rational act. So let's come, and as we celebrate MLK Day, this coming week, let's remember that ultimately, without love, there is no justice, and that we can really go to a deep place. We can love our enemies, we can love our friends, and we can love this fact that we get to be a self in this finite mortal coil that exists within a larger eternity, and that within that eternity, the arc of justice, the arc of history is long. If we allow it, it bends towards justice, and I think we're making it happen.
And I think you are, and I think love is a magnetic force, too, and I think we saw that at work even at Warner Brothers. So, as always, Andrew Slack, pleasure to have you on. Fantastic work, and I hope you'll come back and keep us posted.
Thank you so much, RJ.
We'll talk soon. I'm Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour.